Kingdom. Gary McKenzie back at you again. Another episode of Gridiron Lines on RGR Football, the best YouTube channel for Chiefs content. If you're here, you're probably one of the best Chiefs fans of all time because you're watching one of the best Chiefs YouTube content channels of all time at RGR Football. I'm not necessarily talking about my show. I'm talking about the great work that Dan, Ryan, and Seth all do, to contribute to this awesome team we have. And I just try to play my little part. And my little part today, before the Week 18 matchup against the Los Angeles Chargers, I want to talk about a couple things. I want to talk about Rashee Rice for a little bit because he was my draft crush, and I don't get those very often. And I feel validated by him playing so well. And then I also want to talk about who the Chiefs are going to play in the first round of the playoffs. So, starting with the first round of the playoffs, I just want to touch on that really quick. The Chiefs are slotted in at the number 3 seed no matter what. They're going to be the number 3 seed. Who they play, though, is up in the air. There's a potential of 5 teams, but last week's game and all the challenges they've had all throughout the season still netted them a bye. Sure, it's the 3 seed. We really hope that for that number 1 seed to get that first round bye in the playoffs. But the Chiefs do get a bye of sorts because they get the rest of their starters in Week 18 and then be fresh for their wild card matchup versus one of 5 potential teams. But before we talk about the matchups for the playoffs and the potential teams the Chiefs may face, I want to talk about Rashee Rice, my draft crush. I don't ever get draft crushes, so I feel amazing because the last draft crush I had before Rashee Rice was Patrick Mahomes, and we all saw how he did. I really loved Rashee Rice coming out of the draft. If you followed this channel, you were paying attention to me saying these things before the draft that I liked Rashee Rice's athleticism. I liked his athletic matrix, and I also liked his production. I liked his size. He had all these things to become a great wide receiver in the NFL, and I think that his yardage totals throughout the season, he has 938 yards, which doesn't jump out at you. You think if you have like a top tier wide receiver, they're going to get over 1,000 yards receiving. But I want to mention a few things about Rashee Rice's play this season that really just shine a bright spot on who he can become in this Chiefs offense and just how good he's been this season for the Chiefs. So, starting with Andy Reid's history with rookie wide receivers. We talked about this in a video a couple weeks ago, but with Rashee Rice's game versus the Bengals, he passed the record for most receiving yards by a rookie wide receiver on an Andy Reid coach team. He passed Tyreek Hill, he passed Deshaun Jackson, and he passed Jeremy Maclin, 3 really good wide receivers, and he beat all of them out. I didn't know if he was going to be able to catch Deshaun Jackson. I think Deshaun Jackson had 920 yards receiving his rookie year, but sure enough, with 127 yards receiving last week versus the Bengals, he now has 938 yards, so that puts him in the top spot. Also, another thing about Rashee Rice that is very interesting, and I don't think many Chiefs fans are aware of this, but he's number 3 in catch percentage. He's the 3rd best wide receiver in the NFL in terms of catch percentage at 77.5%. So when he's targeted, he's caught 77.5% of those passes. Part of that's on Rashee Rice, and then part of that's on Mahomes. It sure does help to have a guy like Mahomes throwing you the ball. Accurate, gets it where it needs to be. But even with 8 drops, Rashee Rice is number 3. And then the only 2 receivers ahead of Rashee Rice have 35 targets and 42 targets. Rashee Rice has over 100 targets. This is incredible. I mean, this is an unbelievable statistic that you don't see very often. And then in addition to that, he leads the NFL in yards after the catch. This is also incredible. And then to put one more kind of notch in the gun belt for Rashee Rice, think about the first 8 weeks of the season. He really wasn't being utilized. Many of us watching the games were looking at Rashee Rice with the ball in his hands whenever he finally got an opportunity, and we were thinking the same thing. This guy's incredible. Throw him the ball. I mean, as soon as he catches the ball, he explodes. He's got a huge burst, and you could just see it. Sometimes you see a player on the field and they just look different than everybody else, and that's Rashee Rice. And because of Rashee Rice's involvement in the offense as the season's progressed, it's starting to open up other things for this Chiefs offense. And that's exactly what I was hammering on, during the middle of the season. You get Rashee Rice out there making plays, it's going to open things up for other players. It's going to open up things for the Chiefs running backs, the other wide receivers, perhaps Travis Kelce. That touchdown pass in the Bengals game to Isaiah Pacheco was drawn up and was able to be successful because the Bengals doubled Rashee Rice and they doubled Travis Kelce. They went 4 wide, bunched on the right side of the line, and then they sent those receivers out. They cleared out a huge opening for Isaiah Pacheco. He had a wide open touchdown. If Rashee Rice isn't getting double teamed on that play, maybe one of those linebackers sits down and Pacheco isn't there. So this is a thing that's developing with the Chiefs offense, and I'm excited to see what comes, and I'm excited to see what comes in the playoffs. This was a good time for Rashee Rice to have a really good game because I think it says it's a foreshadowing of things to come, in my opinion. So that's my spiel on Rashee Rice. Very happy my draft crush is doing well. Mostly for the Chiefs team, though, because they need the help on the offensive side of the ball. Moving on to the playoffs. So the Chiefs, as we mentioned before, they have the number 3 seed no matter what. And there are 5 teams who could potentially face the Chiefs in the wild card round. Those 5 teams are Miami, Houston, Pittsburgh, Indianapolis, and Buffalo. As always on these videos, you've got my writing here. I drew a huge table, as you can see there. It got so long, I actually had to come down here and do another row, or another section of the table. But I took all 32 possible outcomes. So there's 5 games that affect who the Chiefs might play in the first round of the playoffs. Those 5 games are Pittsburgh at Baltimore, Houston at Indianapolis, Jacksonville at Tennessee, Buffalo at Miami, and Cleveland at Cincinnati. So these are all games that could potentially have an outcome in terms of who the Chiefs will play during Wild Card Week. Since there's 5 games, there's 32 potential outcomes of those 5 games. So 2 to the power of 5, either the home team wins or the road team wins. So there's only 2 choices out of those 5 options, or out of those 5 games. So 2 to the power of 5 is 32. So there's 32 total outcomes for those games. And I did this table, as you saw before I hold this piece of paper to the screen, basically laying out the possibility for each scenario. So the first scenario, for example, just kind of get you caught up a little bit. Every single road team wins. If every single road team wins, then the Chiefs' playoff opponent during Wild Card Week will be Miami. If every single home team wins, they'll be facing Buffalo. So I did this for a mixture of all these 5 games. Sometimes Pittsburgh would beat Baltimore. Sometimes Indianapolis would beat Houston. Sometimes Jacksonville would beat Tennessee. Sometimes Miami would beat Buffalo. Sometimes Cincinnati would beat Cleveland, and so on and so forth. Of those 32 possibilities, 16 of them had the outcome of the Chiefs playing the Dolphins in the first round of the playoffs. So 50% of those outcomes led to Miami going to Kansas City. The other 4 teams remaining all had the same number of outcomes. So 12.5%, 4 outcomes. Houston, Pittsburgh, Indianapolis, and Buffalo. All of them are less likely, just from a straight 50-50 standpoint, to face the Chiefs in Arrowhead for the wild card game. However, the big game that really matters in terms of playoff seeding for the Chiefs is the game of the Dolphins versus the Buffalo Bills. And Buffalo is currently favored by 3 points in that game. And in games where a team is favored by 3 points in the NFL, historically they win 59.4% of the time. So we can assume Buffalo has a 59.4% chance of beating the Dolphins. And the most likely outcome, if Buffalo does beat the Dolphins, is that the Chiefs will play Miami. In fact, every single outcome. So if Buffalo beats the Dolphins, then the Chiefs are going to play Miami no matter what in the wild card game. However, if Miami wins, then it's a crapshoot for any team, either Houston, Pittsburgh, Indianapolis, or Buffalo. So that game on Sunday night is going to have a huge ramifications for who the Chiefs will face in the playoffs. And if you ask me which of these 5 teams between Miami, Houston, Pittsburgh, Buffalo, and Indianapolis, which team I would like the Chiefs to play, it's a toss-up between Pittsburgh and Indianapolis. I would like to see either of those teams more than any of the others. If I had to rank them on which order I would like to see from least favorite to most favorite, I would least like to see Buffalo, to be honest with you. They've caused some problems for the Chiefs. They are to beat them once in this regular season. They're always a tough game for Kansas City, and they're surging right now. So they've had a good, strong stretch to finish the season, and I don't want to face the Buffalo Bills. So I'm hoping that Kansas City doesn't have to face Buffalo. The next team I'd like to face in that list will be the Miami Dolphins. So I think Miami has a good enough offense to be scary, but they are also really bad against winning teams. The Chiefs haven't been the best against winning teams this season either, but they're my second option, the team I'm afraid of the second most. The team I'm afraid of the third most is Houston. Houston, C.J. Stroud can get hot. That team is scrappy, and, I think that the Chiefs and Texans could have a really interesting game. And then 4 and 5, I've got them tied, Pittsburgh and Indianapolis. I think the Chiefs handle both of those teams if they do come to Kansas City. I could see, the Chiefs playing well in that playoff matchup and winning either one of those games. But let me know in the comment, out of those 5 possible teams the Chiefs could face in the wild card round, which team would you most like to come to Kansas City? Which team would you least like to come to Kansas City? Which team scares you the most? Which team are you least afraid of? And why? Let me know down in the comments. It's a pretty short video this week, but that's all I've got to cover. Here's to a fun game, stress-free game versus the Chargers, where the Chiefs, or whereas Chiefs fans don't have to worry about the outcome too much. We don't have to be too stressed out about the game. I'll have a good time watching some of the backup players, developmental players, get a chance to shine. I've always had a special place in my heart for the unsung heroes. So I'll enjoy the game. But I think that's all I got. Make sure you hit the subscribe button down there if you have not done so already. But this is Gary signing out. Gridiron Lines, RGR Football. Y'all have a good rest of your week. And the playoffs are just around the corner. I'm looking forward to it. See y'all later.
Thanks for watching this video from the team at RGR Football. Click these videos to see more and subscribe to RGR Football.